and teaching on Praise and Worship 101, and I'll kind of be talking about some of the basics of praise and worship and try to tailor the teaching around, or the discussion, or our time of sharing around what you guys need. Is okay, and part of the worship team. Okay, you're from here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I run the sound ministry.
Okay, awesome. I am so glad you are here, because a lot of times that is the part that is left out, and it is intricate. It is very, very intricate and very important to not just the service, but the flow of the service. I mean, every aspect of the service, and specifically in praise and worship, it is very important. So even if you were doing something at your home church and you were doing something catered to worship, never neglect to have your sound people there. A lot of times it tends to be separated as if it is its own entity, but really it isn't. So if ever you have anything, you definitely want your sound ministry to be a part of that, because it is very important. You really work together like hand in glove. Because I want to get off into that a whole lot, because I know everybody has something that they want to be able to share, and JJ can probably speak to this as well. It can make or break a service. That's right. It can make or break the flow of the Holy Ghost. If I am the praise and worship leader and I get up to lead worship and my total focus is on the fact that I can't be heard, or that I'm struggling to hear the whole time, then it distracts my attention away from what I need to do. So we have to work, and a lot of times what ends up happening is that the sound ministry gets in opposition with the people who are singing, as if they have the control. When it really should not be that. It should be that they are working together as a team. So I'm glad that you're here today.
I'm Celine Brown, by the way.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Say your first name.
Celine.
Celine. Thank you. So glad to have you here. Any musicians here? Okay. Okay. So, alrighty. And and who are the worshipers that are here? Everybody should have raised their hand.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're all.
Everybody in the room should have raised their hand, because we're all worshipers. That's not a title that you get because somebody lay hands on you. It's what God created us to be. Bottom line. So that's something that you should know before you ever step up to lead anybody else into worship. You need to know that you are a worshiper. Okay. And then I didn't hear from you.
I'm Margaret. I lived in Virgina, but I'm from here. I'm from Charleston, but I just moved back, and I'll be just continuing.
Okay, all right. So I was going to ask if there was anybody who wasn't sure if they were called to be a worship leader. All right, so it sounds like everybody's sure that they're called to be a worship leader.
I'm not a leader.
Okay.
I mean, I won't say that I lead praise and worship, but I do sing on a praise team back home.
Okay, all right.
And I think
there is a difference. There's definitely a difference. There's definitely a difference. You guys said that the three of you are worship leaders. Did you ever struggle with the fact of whether or not you were a leader before you started doing it?
Still doing that.
Because you seem to kind of be like, and the one thing, I just wrote down a couple notes about that, and we'll get back to that. I want to give the floor to LaWanda to see what she has. But the one thing, too, about a worship leader is that I believe that it's recognized, that gift is recognized, and then once it's recognized or acknowledged, it is then cultivated and developed. And so there are worship leaders who are worship leaders at our church and on our team that when they got on the team, they didn't know that they were a worship leader. And some have doubted that they were worship leaders. As one who has been gifted in the area, I would say as a worship pastor, because I feel like as a worship pastor, you don't just lead worship. You are able to see the giftings in other people, cultivate them, develop them, get them functioning, get them to the point that they're able to carry out what God has put in them. So there were some people who didn't even know that that was on them. I could see, you know, like you just get like a twinkle, like, you know, like before LaWanda was even singing, she will tell you, like I could kind of hear, and I was like, there's something in there. I don't want to do that. Yeah, you gonna do that. You're gonna do that because I hear it in you, and you can, whether you know it, you might not know it now, but that's usually what pastors do. They see that thing in you and they make that thing come to pass. They kind of continue to push and develop you and coach you and get you to where you need to be. So the first thing is that you recognize that in somebody, and then it's like you start developing those people to get there. And so we'll talk more about that. And, okay, I will put a pin in that, so make sure we come back to that. Okay, all righty, and because we're gonna have some scriptures. All right, Mother, you got something?
Just to add just a little bit before we get all into it, I was going to talk about that with our connection, Jodi and I, before I even started. Well, I knew that I could sing. I didn't understand what the call was. I believe I was about 9 with the first time that I realized that I could sing and what it was going to be used for, but I didn't want it. I didn't understand it. I was 9, I was a child. So I remember being called up to the front of the church, and at that time, I believe we were still going to the same church, back at my grandma's church, and my mom used to call me up and make me sing, and I would cry the whole time. The whole song, I would cry through the whole song, and you know, people would just be like, oh, she's praising God. No, she's scared, she doesn't want to be up here, she wants to go hide somewhere. But, you know, a little bit later, Jodi and I met back up, and you know, we both went, you know, separate ways, different churches, and a little bit later we ended up living in the same apartment building. It was like a 3-family house, and she ended up moving in, and I looked outside like, that's Jodi, and she's got kids. So I'm looking at the kids, I wasn't paying attention to all that, but it was a connection, you know, back then. You know, once I was about 15 or 16 at that time when we met back up, and she had a group that she was singing with. So she used to make me come, and I didn't want to do it, and she used to call me like, we're going to sing somewhere, and you're coming. I don't want to come, I don't want to do it. And she used to tell me all the time, like, no, there's something in there, you know, we're going to get this out, we're going to do it. So she's kind of the one who kind of made me start searching myself to find out what it is that you see. You know, what is it? What is this call? So I may as well go ahead and answer this call. I knew there was a call in my life, and I wanted to answer the call. And she's the one who kind of cultivated that. Even now, still, she'll call me. We're going to sing somewhere. You know, we're going to do this, and you coming. And I'm like, okay, I don't fight it, but I'm still like, I'm with you, girl. You know, just like this time, you know, we got this call. I'm like, well, she talked to you first, so I'm going to be there for you. You know, I got some material, but I'm going to get the material to you, and I'm going to be here for you. So it's just, you know, God connects people, and I'm thankful for the connection that she and I have, and for the people that she's connecting me with, and helping me myself to understand what this call about. And I'm more of a writer. I sing, but I'm more of a writer. So, you know, I put things together, and, you know, I'm always writing something, and mostly it's got something to do with worship, so I know what I'm called to. And this is just, you know, the way that God is coming out, bringing it out. So she was talking about understanding your call. And I don't even know if you want to go that far yet. We probably need to start back at the beginning.
Yeah,
what is worship?
That's where
we do have some part where we'll talk about understanding the call, but the first part of it is just knowing that you're called, and just realizing the fact that you have something that you're called to. You may not be called to being a praise and worship leader or praise and worship pastor, but a praise and worship team member. All of that, is all inclusive, it all matters, and it's all important, from the musicians to the sound people to even your connection, and we'll talk about it later if we have time, but even the leaders and members, how you need to unify with the leaders of the house also, because if you don't have a connection with the leaders of the house, you don't know the culture of the house or the vision of the house, and the worship has to do with all of that. That's one of the things that you're called to do. You're called to bring the people to a place, I don't want to get too far, but you're called, I love this. Yeah. You're called to bring the people to a place of worship to where God's presence is tangible to them. And that's what your job is. It's not the riffs and the runs and all of that good stuff. It's just to bring them to a place where they can commune one-on-one with God. That's what your job is. And if you don't know what the vision of the house is, then you're not going to be able to do that.
Ooh, I can talk a lot about
Yeah,
that.
it's a lot, you know, and it's a heavy call, and it's not anything to be played with. It's just like entering into a marriage. It's not anything to be played with, because at that moment you have God's people in your hands, and you can lead them astray. You can, all of your issues and emotions, it comes out while you're up there. So you have to make sure your vessel is clean. You have to make sure you're prepared when it comes to getting up there, because you can spew all of that out. And I know we have all been in services where it's like, this is chaos, but it could be chaos going on in the mind of the leader at the time, and that's what you're feeling. So you have to be really, really careful when you're standing up in front of people and you have that mantle in your hands. It's like at that point, you're the leader of the house, because you're bringing them to that place in connection with your leader. So we'll go back to what is worship.